I'm going to talk about drug addiction. But first, what does that mean? What is the true meaning of addiction? I went on to Google and searched up two different definitions of addiction. The definitions are the state of being enslaved to a habit or practice or something that is psychologically or physically habit forming. Another definition would be compulsive needs for and uses of habit forming substances. Now, with that said, my intentions for this TED Talk is to find out the factors that are included in being addicted. I found out with life pressures and demand, people are turning to substances like drugs to cope and or escape from reality. During this course, I have read 2 novels and watched a movie that related to my topic of drug addiction. My first novel that I read was Playing with Fire by Theo Ferreton. Theo was a famous hockey player, and since he was a boy, Theo has shown star-like qualities. However, even when his hockey career uplifted, he had an inconsistent relationship with his parents, making him feel lonely and depressed, which led him to drinking alcohol. Theo not only had an alcohol problem, but he also had a drug problem too. While at a hockey training camp, Theo met a coach named Graham James. Soon after meeting, James sexually assaulted Theo. Because what was happening with James and Theo was scared to tell anyone about it, Theo then turned to drugs, cocaine, and crystal meth to try and forget about his situation. However, the secret became too intense for Theo and he attempted suicide. The movie that I chose to watch that related to my topic was Walk the Line. This movie is about a common man, Johnny Cash, becoming a famous country singer. Before becoming a famous country singer, Cash was a normal guy just trying to make ends meet. Once Cash became famous, his whole life changed. He was getting money, he was getting lots of girls, even though that he was married, and then started experimenting with drugs. He started experimenting in drugs and became addicted because he wanted to fit in, because he wanted to be cool just like Elvis. Cash continued using drugs because the amount of pressure he was under. Cash was performing night and day, and he did not want to disappoint. Cash took amphetamines, mood-altering drugs, and barbiturates, drugs to wake you up and make you go to sleep, also painkillers. The second novel that I read was Go Ask Alice. This is a novel about a 15-year-old anonymous girl who we assumed name was Alice. Alice had moved to a new house and a new school. She had trouble relating with the kids at school and had troubles communicating with her family. At a party, drugs were slipped into Alice's drink. However, soon after, Alice continued using drugs because she was able to communicate openly with her new friends at school and her family. After a while, Alice decided to stop using drugs, but due to the peer pressure from her new friends, Alice continued and started using different types of drugs like LSD and marijuana. Unfortunately, at the end of Alice's journey, she was reported dead either by accidental or premeditated drug overdose. Now, looking at these 3 different situations, I wanted to know more about the causes of drug addiction. I have found some biological effects, like family history, genetics, cravings, mental disorders, psychological disorders. I have also found that there are psychological causes like curiosity, poor control, social pressures, low self-esteem, stress, escaping reality, and depression. Now, one of the causes that I am focusing on is pressure, mental state of being someone in the spotlight and not. By competing and winning, it makes athletes look better. However, with the amount of pressure put on athletes to succeed, they begin to think that they are not good enough. so athletes begin to take performance enhancement drugs. Another thought some athletes have is that they are unable to achieve success without some help, resulting in athletes taking performance-enhancing drugs. These drugs make athletes bigger, stronger, faster, but using these drugs is cheating. There is a much better way and legal way of making yourself better instead of using performance-enhancing drugs. Example would be training more and harder. Another factor that creates pressure that leads athletes in taking performance-enhancing drugs is from coaches and parents. Coaches and parents want their players to win and be successful. However, with the amount of pressure from their coaches and parents, the athletes may lose confidence and quit their sports altogether. Also, the only way that these athletes feel that they can reach the expectations set by the coaches and parents are by taking steroids. With being an athlete myself, I have seen this very often. The coaches and parents want their children to be great. However, the child is unable to reach their expectations, which leads them to being disappointed even more. Now, I have talked about the pressures of being someone in the spotlight, but what about the people who are not, the common person? One of the most affecting pressures that a common person faces is peer pressure. Peer pressure can lead someone making wrong and harmful decisions that can have a negative impact on themselves or the people around them, Now, I have looked on Google and found a few pictures of athletes and celebrities and common people to give you a perspective of what drugs can do to you. Here I have Lance Armstrong and Michael Phelps. Both are in the spotlight and are commonly known for using their drugs. Here I have two singers, Pete Doolittle and Amy Winehouse. I have to say, Amy Winehouse, you should have said yes, yes, yes to rehab. Now that I know the effects of the drugs, and by looking at the pictures, you can see the effects that drugs have on a person. I'm going to talk about now the effects of drugs. A little background information about steroids. They were first used in 1940 by German troops to increase aggression. Abusers of steroids, like professional athletes, have been noted to have enhanced behavior and self-esteem, increased libido, and euphoria, happiness. The withdrawal effects of steroids include low mood swings, violent outbursts, and decrease in strength, performance, and muscle mass, dangerous consequences of serious depression, and suicidal thoughts. With other drugs like marijuana, LSD, and cocaine, the common effects are stimulation, making the user more awake, alert, and confident. It also increases the heart rate, body temperature, and the blood pressure. Another effect would be hallucinations, which affects the person's perception. My last point that I wanted to cover is that I want to explain that drug addiction is not just addiction, but is a serious problem, a serious mental issue for all athletes, famous people, and common people. With drug addiction, one of the most common misconceptions people have is that drug users are able and or should be able to stop using drugs whenever they want to. However, people are misunderstanding and underestimating the complexity of drug addiction. Drug addiction is a disease. It impacts the brain the most. And because of that, stopping drug use is not simply a matter of willpower. Drug addiction is a long-term deal that often relapsing brain disease that causes constant drug seeking and use. By using drugs, it changes the structure and function of the brain. And due to the changes, it makes it more challenging for a person who is addicted to stop abusing drugs. Overall, there are many causes of drug addiction, both biological and social and psychological. The causes that I focused on, the cause that I focus on the most is the amount of pressure that people are in. Most people are in from coaches, parents, and friends. With being in the spotlight like an athlete or performer, they have high expectations and an image that they have to hold up to. However, if they cannot keep this image up or achieve success, then it could lead them in doing drugs to achieve their goal. Also, peer pressure has a large effect on a person's mind and body. Lastly, we as a society need to come together and stop criminalizing drug abusers and start giving the proper help that they need in order to get better. The most effective help would be proper rehab, support, and having friends and family helping with the rehabilitation. Thank you.